So this means, unless I'm reading it wrong, that Trump is working with BlackRock.
I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjekovic, and we are unapologetically outspoken.
Hey everybody, happy Monday. We just recorded an entire episode that did not upload because I am at an Airbnb in Edinburgh, Scotland, and the Wi-Fi here is shit. So I'm going to apologize because I don't have my mic either. So hopefully the sound quality isn't horrible. But Stephanie, let's try this again. So
Here we go again.
here we go. So I just want to start off with a story that I saw shortly before we started recording earlier. And Stephanie, you're going to love this because the agricultural secretary just canceled a grant worth $600,000. And you want to know what it was for? It was for the study of menstrual cycles in transgender men. So, Secretary Brooke Rollins announced this on Friday, and the recipient of the grant was the Southern University Agricultural and Mechanical College in Louisiana. And I have to read what the grant said because this is absolutely insane. It says, quote, the first occurrence of menstruation occurs at approximately 12 years of age and ends with menopause at roughly 51 years of age. A woman will have a monthly menstrual cycle for about 40 years of her life, averaging to about 450 periods over the course of her lifetime. It is also important to recognize that transgender men and people with masculine gender identities, intersex, and non-binary persons may also menstruate. At any given moment, about 26% of the world's population is menstruating. This study seeks to address growing concerns related to menstruation, including the potential use of natural fibers such as hemp in feminine hygiene products.
The whole thing is so ridiculous. So ridiculous. And what does
It's
that have to do with the agriculture department or whatever university that is?
I $600,000 for fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of nonsense money, I have to mention one other thing that just occurred. And that was Doge came out, and we haven't had some good Doge spending for an episode or two. But they just came out and said that $312 million in loans were given to children during COVID. So I need to read this also because this came from, again, the Small Business Association, right? So they apparently granted nearly 5,600 loans for $312 million dollars to borrowers whose only listed owner was 11 years old or younger at the time of the loan. And it said, quote, while it is possible to have business arrangements where this is legal, that is highly unlikely for these 5,593 loans, as they were all used, as they all also used a social security number with the incorrect name.
So does that mean that someone stole their social security number, or is this like parents using their kids to get money? I mean, either way, it's bullshit. Like that's wrong. It's
Yeah,
terrible.
it's absolute insanity. So
Wow.
when we turn around, there's more crazy spending.
Yep.
But let's talk about something else that's crazy, and that's the fact that it's like deja vu. Once again, we're coming to the point of being on the verge of a partial government shutdown by this Friday if Congress doesn't approve a spending bill. And I guess now is going to be the time if we see whether or not Republicans are truly united under Trump, because Fox News reported that House Republican leadership aides had a call with reporters on Saturday morning, and they basically indicated that the bill was, quote, closely coordinated with the White House. And based on what Trump posted on True Social, this seems to be the case because it almost sounded like he put out a plea. And I'm going to read what his post was. And he said, the House and Senate have put together under the circumstances, a very good funding bill, CR. All Republicans should vote, please, yes, next week. Great things are coming for America, and I am asking you all to give us a few months to get through September so we can continue to put the country's financial house in order. Democrats will do anything they can to shut down our government, and we can't let that happen. We have to remain united, no dissent. Fight for another day when the timing is right. Very important. Make America great again. And so, like Trump referenced in this post, this would be another one of the continuing resolutions so that we can maintain current government funding levels through September, where they would then have, introduce a new spending bill. But this continuing resolution would add 8 billion more in defense spending, while also decreasing non-defense spending by about 13 billion. There's an added 6 billion for healthcare for veterans and additional spending for funding ICE. And overall, the bill would provide 892.5 billion in discretionary federal defense spending and 708 billion in non-defense discretionary spending. And honestly, I'm interested to see how Republicans vote on this because I'm going to guess Thomas Massey is going to vote against it. He always votes against continuing resolutions. And apparently, Rep. Tony Gonzalez from Texas, he also posted on X last week and said, I'm a no on the CR. Congress needs to do its job and pass a conservative budget. CRs are code for continued rubber stamp of fraud, waste, and abuse.
I'm with him on this. Like, how are we in this situation again with a potential government shutdown? We were just here a few months ago. It's maddening. Congress needs to do their job and put together a reasonable budget. And with all the money that we're saving with Doge and pausing the Ukrainian funding and, trying to pull out of that war, I would think it would be easy to get back to pre-pandemic spending. And I get what Trump's saying, like we need to just kind of push this through to get through September. But you know what's going to happen. They're not going to do their job and plan ahead. So we'll get to September and then they'll be scrambling. So they'll push it to Christmas. Then it'll be Christmas and they'll pass a huge omnibus spending bill just so they can go home for the holidays. Like this keeps happening over and over and over again. And the Republicans need to step up and do their job and put together a bill that reduces spending. And like Ron Johnson keeps saying, if we just simply went back to pre-pandemic spending levels, we'd be in good shape. So it's not like it's, that hard. He's saying you don't literally have to do anything other than just go back to those levels before 2020. And from everything I'm seeing, day in and day out online, it's like everyone in Congress is so distracted with their committees and these hearings that go absolutely nowhere instead of focusing on the budget, which should be their top priority considering, where we're at as a country and all the wasteful spending that was just revealed. So it just pisses me off.
That is exactly why it's a theater performance,
Yeah.
because that's what they do. They have all these hearings and they make things sound like they're doing all this work. And then it comes down to funding the country and they can't fucking make a decision on anything.
Yeah, like the
And
one thing they have control over, they completely ignore until the 11th hour.
yeah. So, and on one hand, like I get where Trump's coming from. He was handed a fucked up budget. I
Yeah.
mean, he really was. So they're going to have to come to a consensus on something. And I'm curious to see if they approve this CR, how it changes with the next actual spending bill.
Right, because we're talking about over $1 trillion. It's not like, oh, it's just a few billion. This is a lot of money. So, yeah, that's crazy. Um, so some good news that is coming through is that we actually might see some accountability for once when it comes to the people that are leaking information on ICE. So Kristi Noem revealed two employees at the Department of Homeland Security that are what she's calling criminal leakers, and she's referring them to the Justice Department for prosecution. So she went on X and posted, the president was very clear. If individuals illegally dox our ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, they will be referred to Pam Bondi and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We are locking down the border and sending illegal aliens back to where they came from. We won't allow lawbreakers to stand in the way of protecting the American people. And I think it's great. Like, make an example out of those people. Finally, like,
Yeah,
get some criminal charges going.
yeah, absolutely. If this happens, that would be fantastic. And I gotta bring up something else that has to do with this because reportedly the DHS is going to use polygraph tests to try and figure out who these leakers are. And Bloomberg reported, I think this was last week, that there was an internal directive by Nome that every polygraph exam done by the DHS has to have questions about unapproved communications with nonprofit groups and media. And Stephanie, here's what I find shocking. How is this not already like standard at the DHS? Like, I had to take polygraphs for both police departments I worked for, and so did every other cop I know. And I know that polygraphs aren't always 100% accurate and they are faulty, but I guess I assumed they were the standard for government security positions, especially for Homeland Security.
Yeah, it's like we're spending trillions of dollars, but we can't get polygraphs. We have federal employees that are retiring, but none of that's electronic. It's all done by paper. I mean, it's like they're stuck in the 1950s. I don't understand at all. But something else interesting that's going on. So remember on Friday how I said the Missouri Attorney General wants the DOJ to investigate whether or not Biden was being taken advantage of, because we know he had a mental decline, all that kind of stuff. Well, the Heritage Foundation has the what's called the Oversight Project, and they have been going through all of the important documents, like executive orders from the Biden administration. And what they found was that nearly all of them were signed with AutoPen, which is basically a computer saved signature. So that would be used in instances when the president's on vacation, but there's something urgent that comes up that needs to be signed immediately. But this was used for like everything.
Which technically would make sense because Biden was on vacation more than any president ever in US history, and he wasn't at the White House most of the time.
Nor was he coherent most of the time, it appears. But the thing is, like, these weren't just mundane documents. Like, we're talking about executive orders. And one of the few documents they found that wasn't signed on AutoPen was the letter stating that he was dropping out of the race. That was done, that was a live signature. But guess what? That signature does not match the AutoPen signature. And not only does it not match, but it was underlined, which all of the other signatures are not underlined, except for a couple of pardons that were signed at the very end. So this brings up a ton of questions. Which signature is Biden's true signature? And was it actually Biden that signed the letter that he was dropping out of the race, or was it someone forging that? And if it was someone forging it, well, wouldn't that be the smoking gun that the coup did in fact take place and they pushed him out against his will? And then if that was his signature, then who was using the auto pen? Like, who was behind the computer screen for all those radical left executive orders?
Yeah, that is the ultimate question, right? Like, who was pulling the puppet strings? And I think this all comes back to what we were talking about last Friday. If AutoPen was used to sign all these executive orders and these pardons, and Biden was so cognitively impaired that he couldn't even be held responsible for the classified document scandal, and he clearly wasn't competent enough to run for office, shouldn't basically everything that he did from that point forward in his administration be completely illegal and unconstitutional?
Yeah, yes. And whoever was pulling the puppet strings and being, in that circle, of influencing what happens in the country should be in prison for, they should go to like Guantanamo Bay. I mean, this is huge.
Shouldn't that be
So,
treason? Like to have someone
yes,
else, right?
especially considering they were funding a war in Ukraine, giving more money to Ukraine than any country ever, except aside from Israel. Like, I think there's a lot more here. And so, again, this was just the Heritage Foundation, but I would assume they would be turning this over to, I don't know, Pam Bondi or something. We'll see. But I just thought that was wild. And then on top of that, the last 4 years, okay, so during the Biden administration, there were 300,000 jobs added, government jobs added. To put that in perspective, in the previous 20 years, the government added 240,000 jobs. Last 20 years, 240,000. Last 4 years under Biden, 300,000. And so this is huge because it accounts for 31% of the total job growth in our country, which completely swayed the numbers. Like, remember when they were going on the news and saying, oh, the economy's great. Just look at the job numbers. The job numbers are wonderful. Well, yeah, it was manufactured. They were making up these jobs. I mean, where do you come up with 300,000 additional jobs? It's insane.
Well, I'm pretty sure like 90% of those were DEI and climate justice related.
Absolutely. That's exactly, I'm sure, what happened. So they can bitch and moan about Trump cutting all these jobs, but those jobs shouldn't have been there in the first place. So that's wild. But some good news, what I'm taking as just another sign that this may actually happen, is you had the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, on Laura Ingraham, and he had some positive news about where our economy is headed. So let me play that clip.
What we're doing is we are going to teach everybody in America that the people who live and breathe off our economy, all these foreign companies and these foreign countries who just live and breathe off our economy, they're going to start to pay. And we're going to make the External Revenue Service replace the Internal Revenue Service. And I know people in America, and the Democrats especially, they have Stockholm Syndrome. They just want to tax, tax, tax. And Donald Trump is just going to grow, grow, grow. And this is going to be such a different economy than they've ever seen.
I thought it was interesting that he said that they have Stockholm syndrome because I feel like that perfectly describes the Democrats right now. But I think this is great. Like, we've heard Trump talk about this, but the fact that multiple people in his cabinet now are coming forward and saying, yes, we can actually make this work and it is going to take place. I just feel very optimistic listening to that. I know I can be a little naive, but I'm just going to hope that this actually happens.
It would be absolutely amazing if it did, and I can be hopeful, but I almost can't even imagine it, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see if it happens. I gotta switch gears to something that doesn't sound so hopeful because I thought this story was actually a little bit concerning. And I read this in Yahoo Finance. I have no idea how I did not see this last week because that's when it came out. But I guess I was like all consumed with our clown show Congress and Trump's speech. But you know how Trump has been talking about buying the Panama Canal? Well, last Tuesday, it was announced that BlackRock made a deal with a Hong Kong-based conglomerate who agreed to sell its controlling shares for ports on both sides of the canal to BlackRock for $22.8 billion. So these ports are Balboa and Cristobal. And apparently they combined see 70% of sea traffic that crosses the Panama Canal to and from the States. And this deal now gives BlackRock and its subsidiary, like its own company, Global Infrastructure Partners, along with a company called Terminal Investment Limited, it gives them control over 43 ports in 23 different countries. So this means, unless I'm reading it wrong, that Trump is working with BlackRock because basically this move gives the United States a larger American presence at these shipping lanes. And according to a separate report from Bloomberg, it sounds like Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, he actually reached out to the White House about doing this purchase. And his like rationale behind it was to say there would be no need for Trump to forcibly take the ports back if BlackRock arranged the purchase on their own. And that seems to be what's happening. And the deal, I think it still needs to be signed off by Panama since they still control the canal. But the article indicated that Trump referenced this deal when he gave his address to Congress last Tuesday, and when he said, quote, "My administration will be reclaiming the Panama Canal and taking it back." They're saying like that was referring to this deal. Like, is this what he meant? And the article also goes on to talk about what something you brought up a while back, how, BlackRock is seemingly aligning with Trump and his administration because they removed all their DEI references from the company's annual report. They told employees in a memo that they were going to end workplace representation goals. They're no longer going to require hiring managers to interview based on diversity. And then back in January, BlackRock pulled out of a UN-supported climate group called Net Zero Asset Managers Initiative. And they did this just weeks before Trump took office because obviously they knew what was coming. And anytime BlackRock is in the picture, it concerns me, don't you think?
It's like a deal with the devil. That's
Yeah,
kind of what's going through my mind right now. I mean, yeah, I don't trust BlackRock whatsoever. And it makes me wonder, is BlackRock going to use this to essentially bribe the president? Or like if the president doesn't do something that they want done, will they somehow use this to restrict us or play global politics? I mean, nothing seems on the up and up, especially when it comes to BlackRock. And I hate to say this, but I am really disappointed that Trump continues to align himself with these corrupt elites. It's like first there was Scott Bessent, which we still don't trust him. Then you had Sam Altman and Larry Ellison with the whole AI thing. And now BlackRock. Like, what in the actual hell is taking place here? And why is Trump agreeing to it?
exactly. Yeah. It's like you say, it gets your little spidey senses tingling, you know?
Yeah, I know. It's like not even spidey senses. I have like a sick gut feeling about the whole thing. Oh gosh, but okay, completely switching gears. There's an update on the death of Gene Hackman and his wife. So Newsmax is reporting that Hackman died of heart disease and had severe Alzheimer's, and his wife Betsy died of a rare virus called hantavirus pulmonary syndrome that you contract from being in close proximity to rodent droppings. So this is just odd. Like, is it just a coincidence that they both happened to die the same week from two completely unrelated health issues? And you mean to tell me a 65-year-old contracts this rare virus from rodent droppings, but her fragile 95-year-old husband doesn't? Like, that seems odd to me. And also, what about the pills and I think it was a bottle of pills and pills scattered on the floor next to her body. Like, what was that for? I mean, I don't know. Am I just being dramatic or am I the only one not buying this story?
I think we just have conspiracy theory brain so often that it's hard to, have this new story make sense.
Yeah.
But what I find most disturbing is the reports that he was reportedly alive for an entire week after she died. And there's speculation that because of how severe his Alzheimer's was, he possibly didn't even know she was dead, which could be absolutely true with Alzheimer's. And oh my God, Stephanie, can you imagine being in a house with your dead spouse for a week and you have no fucking clue they're dead? Like you don't even know what's going on. That it's just devastating. And because I've seen what Alzheimer's can do, it's just, oh, this just makes me so sad. And then there's the whole issue with the dog. Like, first it was reported that the dog that died was found in a closet in the bathroom. And now I'm reading that the dog was found in a kennel. And reportedly, the dog had been to the vet a few days before Betsy died. So I can see how the kennel story would make sense. But why is it a different story than the story that we first heard? Because all the news outlets reported the dog deceased in the bathroom. And
Mhm.
now it's the dog in the kennel. But maybe the kennel was in the bathroom. I don't know. But if the details that are being reported are true and there is no foul play, this is just really fucking weird and like tragic.
Yeah, I guess no matter what happened, it's tragic, but I'm just not buying it. Like, you have this rare pulmonary syndrome. Okay, have you been to the doctor for it? Like, you just are at home dying and like you didn't go to the doctor. The whole thing is, it's just so bizarre. And like you said, the story is changing, and that's always a little fishy. So who knows what they'll say next on it.
And maybe the pills she was taking were related to the hantavirus. But
Could
I
be.
think because of HIPAA laws, like they're not releasing
Yeah.
to the media what the bills were for. So I don't know. It's still really weird. But because we're talking about death, I'm going to bring up this other bizarre story because I did not even know that this type of execution option was in existence. But apparently it is. There was a man in South Carolina who was executed by firing squad on Friday. And this guy's name was Brad Sigmund. He was a 67-year-old man who, back in 2002, he killed his ex-girlfriend's parents with a baseball bat inside their home after their daughter broke up with him. And then he abducted the girl at gunpoint and then shot her as she jumped from the car to escape, but she survived. And then he apparently stole an RV and went on the run for 10 days before being caught. And I guess he's been in prison ever since. So this guy is reportedly the first U.S. prisoner in 15 years to die by firing squad. And apparently, this is the first time that a firing squad death has taken place in South Carolina. And according to all the reports I read, this guy chose this option with the firing squad because he saw it as preferable to the electric chair or lethal injection. And Stephanie, check this out because I had no idea how this was done. But journalists were allowed to watch from behind bulletproof glass. And this guy was strapped to a chair in the death chamber, and he was wearing like a black jumpsuit. And there was a small red bullseye made of like paper or cloth over his heart. And then they placed a hood over his head and like he sat there for 2 minutes. And then a firing squad consisting of three members of the South Carolina Department of Corrections, they then fired their rifles through a slit in the wall about 15 feet away and killed him.
I mean, honestly, to me, that sounds like the best way to go. You know, like the electric chair is horrifying. I think it was the movie The Green Mile that really like ingrained that in my mind. Like we shouldn't have the electric chair. But even with lethal injection, like I don't know why I think about shit like this, but it's like you're injected with a chemical that paralyzes you, including your organs. But I always wonder, like, are you aware, even though you seem to be unaware or asleep? Like, what if you are aware? And if you are, that seems like a slow, agonizing death. Like, I would rather just be shot, especially if it's directly in the heart. Just shoot me. That to me, that seems, I don't know, like the best way to go. So
But see,
bad.
I wonder if like the chemical injection, the lethal injection, if that's like what they do with dogs, like when you put your dog to sleep, because I've had to put a couple of my dogs to sleep. And I remember the vet saying like, "Oh, they don't, they don't really feel it. They just go to sleep." But that's what it does, right? It shuts down all their organs. And I remember it with one of my Great Danes. I sat there with that dog for like 5 minutes
Hmm.
while he slowly like faded away. And I just wonder if it's the same thing that they do,
Right. I mean, yeah, because you're not going to sit there for 5 minutes after you've been shot in the heart,
right?
right? It's pretty instant. Like you're out. That's it.
Especially with multiple shots.
With rifles. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's if that's an option, like why did we get rid of that? Bring it back. Why did we bring the electric chair? Talk about fucked up. Like that to me, whoever came up with that has some issues because that's probably like the most messed up thing ever. But oh my God, what a disturbing, morbid topic to end on. So happy Monday, everyone. Now you can think about that. That's going to be living rent free in your head all week. But yeah, we have a fun episode coming up this week. And even though Tara's traveling, we're gonna update everyone because I'm sure there's going to be stuff coming out. I feel like every day there's a lot of news. So we'll be back here on Wednesday, but thanks everyone for tuning in and have a great day.